I started my career in the project by project type consulting world where income was up and down, and it didn't make for a really fun ride. The roller coaster was tough to deal with. So I've really worked over the past couple of years on putting together how to create annuity revenue for a consultant. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to create annuity income as a consultant, a path to explosive sales growth and market domination of your business segment. Move on, Colleen.
Hold, please. I'm having some technical difficulties with finding this little page. Here it is. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. So why hire a consultant? That's one of the questions that as a lot of small business owners will ask that question. They feel like, they know enough. They know enough to get by. They've gotten by for years. But, so why hire a consultant? So one of the things that we did at Small Business USA is take a look at some of the top reasons why a small business owner should hire a consultant. And one of the things that I recommend to all our certified consultants is that when you are putting together your value proposition and your marketing materials, try to focus on one of these particular areas and design your value proposition around that, because each of these factors will impact the value of a business. Okay, Colleen. So before we get into the individual factors, let's take a step back and say big picture. What is a consultant doing? What should they be doing, and how should they describe what they're doing? I always come back to the model of creating value in a business. So at a minimum, a consultant should be helping to create additional value in the business. So how do you do that? One of the ways you do that is by maximizing a business's sales. So coming in with new marketing methods, new sales methods, new methods to help increase sales. So that's the first way that a consultant can impact the value of your business. The second is by increasing productivity. So productivity can get sapped in many ways. One way can be lack of employee engagement, lack of training, or the fact that they haven't invested in other productive costs such as technology, which allow them to be more productive. So another great thing for a consultant to focus on is how to increase productivity of the employees. Decreasing expenses is a big piece of it. So the value of a business is dependent upon the profit that it makes. So typically, a business is valued at a multiple of its profit. So if you're able to decrease expenses by eliminating non-productive costs or squeezing maximum productivity out of the costs that are on the P&L, you can bring additional value to a business. And the fourth way that you can bring a lot of value to the business is by reducing the risk profile of the business. So whether that's providing timely HR advice, timely legal advice if you're an attorney, any type of advice that's going to help mitigate risk in business. We're always going to have risk, but the goal is to mitigate risk. All right, Colleen. Well, this slide really highlights the fact that 90% of all consultants aren't necessarily focused on the right thing. When they're talking about what they do for a living, they're not talking about it in terms of these 14 key deliverables that we've identified. And this is a non-exclusive list. There may be other particular deliverables that may be worthy of mention, but we've chosen these 14. So, if you want to put yourself in the top 10% of consultants, then you want to make sure that you're delivering in one of these key areas.
I will tell you, if you don't mind, I will tell you that this is a result of a survey that we did with small business owners and consultants. And what we found was there were so many gaps. Even when someone thought they delivered, there were so many pieces where there was a ripple effect of their actions that caused a negative consequence to that small business owner, or there was something that the small business owner really did not feel that the consultant delivered on, and there was a breakdown in communication, or there was just plain, hey, they didn't do this for me and this is what I expected. So this was a very eye-opening survey from a Small Business USA perspective, and really something that we've wrapped into our learnings as well and what we do.
And we'll talk, as we move forward today, we'll talk about ways. So I think one of the disconnects between clients and consultants is that a lot of times there's a lot of consultants that think that they're solely in the advice business without understanding that, part of being a consultant is also being able to foreshadow how this is going to be implemented and provide implementation assistance. All right, Colleen. All right, so let's, this slide is aptly titled, "The Issues That Can Ruin the Success of Small Business Owners." Because, a small business is a very delicate thing, and you can be up one minute and down the next. So part of my consulting and part of what we teach as part of our certification program at Small Business USA is being able to identify the issues that could ruin a business. The last thing in the world that we want to do is ruin a business where, someone's livelihood depends on it, their retirement depends on it, and their legacy that they're going to leave their children depends on it. So it's extremely important. So the first thing I like to look at is your sales are not growing at 10 to 15% per year. Why 10 to 15% per year? We believe that the value of a business growing at 10 to 15% a year will double within a period of 6 to 8 years of value. So if you look at if you subscribe to the idea that the business is probably the biggest asset of the small business owner and the one that they're going to be able to retire from through some sort of a sale or work agreement, then you're seeing that it's really important that they grow to 10 to 15% per year. Second thing that can really ruin a small business is you don't have a sustainable competitive advantage. I mean, if you're up one day but you don't have an advantage over your competitors that's going to allow you to sustain your results over a long period of time, you just don't have much of a successful business. It's very easy to come in and duplicate what you're doing, and people will duplicate what you're doing if you're successful. So you have to build sustainable competitive advantages in various parts of your business. So when I talk about competitive advantage, I don't only talk about service delivery, and that's typically where people talk about competitive advantage. I think you have to have a competitive advantage in sales and marketing. I think you have to have a competitive advantage in employee efficiency. I think you need to use technology better than other firms, and you've got to mitigate your risks better than other firms. So that's one of the ways that hiring consultants, good qualified consultants, can help a small business, is it can help you gain a competitive advantage in areas where you may not be so naturally inclined or have as much background. You probably got into business because you have a very good understanding of how to deliver your service, but you may not have gotten into business with a competitive edge in sales and marketing. So a lot of our tools are geared towards helping you do that. The third thing that can ruin a business is your efficiency drops in your product or service line. So if you have a product business, if it's costing you more to make the product and you have less margin, that's a big problem for a business. Less margin means less profit. Same thing on the service side. If you have a group of service-providing employees who are not as productive as they used to be due to employee morale issues or employee engagement issues, that's going to seriously impact the bottom line. So one of the statistics that I always look at when I'm evaluating a company is how efficient they've been over the last 3 years and how that's trending. Low employee morale is huge. I don't remember the specific stat, but I want to say it was close to 70% of employees are not well engaged at work. Engaged employees are productive employees. Productive employees lead to productive and profitable businesses. So you want to make sure that you have good employee morale to the extent you can. And if you don't, bring in the resources to help you with your employee morale. On the next slide, Colleen.
Yeah, those numbers are pretty tremendous around employee engagement and morale. I think you're right on. I think it was 73% are disengaged, but the number that are actively disengaged, actively looking, are really high. And more importantly, when someone's even not actively, that's 73 to 76% right now, that's a 202% loss in productivity that a business will suffer. And that goes to your, fourth or third point.
Yeah, I mean, it can just blow up your profit in no time. I mean, just having employees who aren't engaged, they're not operating at maximum efficiency, that tends to lead you to hire more employees. But when you have an employee morale problem, that just tends to make the problem worse rather than better. So you have to, from a consulting standpoint, get at the root cause of what's causing the employee morale issues and work to fix that before you start hiring more people to try to cure the problem. All right, so the fifth thing is your cost structure is too high from a cost of goods sold or SG&A perspective. So, the core of a business is, what can you charge for your service, and what does it cost you to deliver that service? That's your gross profit margin. From a product standpoint, it's, what can you sell your product for, and what does it cost you to make it or buy it wholesale? So, those costs, we can make a big difference as consultants by helping companies increase their profit margin. But at the same time, we want to make sure that their cost structure as a whole is not too high for their business. There's some things that as consultants we can't come in and fix if they're paying New York City rents in downtown South Windsor. They probably negotiated their lease improperly, and we can't fix that retrospectively. But we can take a hard look at the P&L and see whether there's either some non-productive costs or some costs that are not being maximized. And we want to focus on those areas so that the cost structure is okay. When you go to sell a business, point 6 really goes to two things. It goes to the fact that if you're going to be real efficient and you're going to be real profitable, then you're going to have documented processes that members of your team understand, are able to apply, that give them enough guidance to help them through gray areas. This becomes a huge factor when you go to sell the business, because if you're trying to sell a business and you don't have duplicatable processes in place, you don't really have a saleable business at that point. The business is really worth nothing once you've left. So documenting your processes is a very important thing to help increase the productivity of your team, but also when you go to create more of a saleable business. 7, we start to get into some of the financial measures that, your balance sheet is not turning properly. So one of the things that is a sure key to me that a company is struggling is their accounts payable is going up and their accounts receivable is going down. So it tells me that they owe more money than they are owed on a short-term basis. So when you see a company like that, you're going to have a liquidity problem in the near term, so you have to deal with that. Go ahead. Oh, I thought we had a comment. Okay. One of the things that I want to highlight before I go on to the remaining points is, the goal when I work with a consultant is to make the consultant broader. So I want to take what they bring to the table in terms of their discipline, whatever they do. If they're a marketing consultant, I want to help them be the best marketing consultant they can be. But I also want to make them more of a general business consultant. And I would never ask them to effectively, be responsible for the financial aspects of a business. But, they should be able to read a simple P&L so that they can identify issues client to the person who can help them. So one of the best ways to bring value to a client is to be a resource for them. Just have to give me 1 second. I'm just having technical difficulties myself here.
No problem.
Okay, I'm back on.
All right.
All right, so you're not managing cash flow properly. That is obviously a huge problem. Cash flow is the lifeblood of the business. So when you get into difficult liquidity times, we may be in a situation where we have to effectively, we may have to push vendors out a little bit. So if we normally pay within 30 days, we may need to pay within 60 days. We may know that we have one large receivable that's coming in, and that we've got to sort of hold payments until that receivable comes in. But those are things that you have to be able to manage cash flow properly. You have to. You can't spend everything you make. There's got to be a certain amount that gets invested back into the business. There's a certain amount that has to go for owner compensation. There's a certain amount that has to go for the owner's retirement. So you have to figure that into your cash flow planning. And I would say 99% of small business owners don't have a proper cash flow plan. The ninth is really, it may look out of place in a business consulting discussion, but your personal spending is preventing you from investing in the business. That can be a real problem when you basically have to take everything out that you make in order to fund your lifestyle, but at the same time you don't have the ability to make additional investments in your business. So when that's when that's an issue, I'm not typically the person who ends up solving that issue. I'm more of the person who spots that issue and gets them first to a financial planner to get their personal spending under control and get a savings plan in place so that they're not spending as much as they were before, so that they can invest in their business and invest in their retirement. I'll have the next slide, Colleen. Next one is big, and this is one where you really every small business owner should at a minimum have their attorney review their standard contract, because most small business owners are taking on way too much liability risk in that contract. If you're not careful with your contract, I have one client who effectively warranted their product forever because they didn't put any language regarding warranties, or the language wasn't strong enough regarding warranties in their standard contract. So that's a huge liability to take on in the product sense. And then in the service sense, you want to make sure that your standard contract is boilerplate enough for you to use with all your clients, but customizable enough so that you can put in the scope of work. So one of the things that Colleen mentioned earlier in the call is that there was a gap between what clients, what they were getting from consultants. So one of the ways to actively manage that gap is to effectively disclose to the client in the written engagement letter what it is that you're to do, what results you're hoping to achieve, so that you're both on the same page going forward. 13 can be a huge problem. A lot of business owners don't know what they don't know about human resources, and it's what you don't know that's going to come back and bite you. So I'm always in favor of a business owner having an HR consultant on board who can help them work through those issues. If they can't afford to work with them on a monthly basis, there's other ways to go about it, which we'll talk about, that make it more for the small business owner to do so. So the last one I'm going to talk about is that your advisors aren't working together. I can't tell you how many clients I have where I'm the first one to ask, okay, well, who's your HR consultant? Who's your marketing consultant? Do you have any other consultants that are working for you? Because if you do, I want to get to know them, and I want to know what they're doing so that I can effectively sync whatever strategies I have with what they're doing. And And that's a very important thing. I actually know one attorney who has spent 25 years trying to get advisors to work together and has actually developed a model to do so. But for some reason, we still have that issue of advisors not working together and all pulling in one direction. So this slide here is basically just taking it's sort of a recap of the fact that 90% of all consultants don't deliver on at least one of these key deliverables, but all of them think they have. So, we're dealing with that gap between expectations and client perception of what was done. So I think one of the things that we train our certified consultants to do is to be real clear up front in terms of communication, in terms of having written documentation of what's supposed to be done and what is supposed to be achieved, so that it's clear for both parties what the expectations are. So one thing you definitely want to think about as you're going through this is when you're analyzing a problem for a small business owner, you've got to think about how it impacts the rest of the business. So I could come in with the best sales and marketing strategy. And I've seen this strategy work in a bunch of large companies that I've worked for. And that's great, but the one thing that those companies had that my company does not have is a marketing department. So I have to realize as a consultant, if I'm putting in this marketing program at a small business, it's taking away from some other aspect of their business. So one of the things that I tell all the consultants I work with is that you have to, at a minimum, you have to be working towards helping a small business owner gain a competitive advantage in one of the 14 areas that we talked about. If you're not, you're probably not using their time wisely.
It's really interesting, and I like that you put this in. Like, everything that you talked about is step one, and it's I guess almost embarrassing and frustrating that so many consultants don't really self-assess and look at, are they really responding to those 14 things? So thanks, Brian.
Well, I think part of it is, part of what we've done through our work is identify these 14 things. And through these learning vehicles and through our certification program, we're going to be rolling these out to people and letting them take a look at them and really gauge whether what they've been offering has been making a material impact upon small businesses. And if it hasn't been, to reassess and to change your service model so that you are delivering on one of these 14 key deliverables or another key deliverable. As I said before, that's not an all-inclusive list, but that list is based on a lot of experience and a lot of surveys that have been done over the years. On the next slide. So one of the things that we want to do with any consultant that we work with is we want to increase their revenues. When we start to think about how to increase your revenue, we've got to think about the potential sources of client revenue. So one of the best sources of client revenue is one that I think most of us don't maximize is past clients. The only thing that brings a past client from a current client is a phone call. All you need is to make a phone call with the right value proposition, because these people already know, like, and trust you, and they've received benefit from what you've done in the past. So they're more likely to work with you. So when you're thinking about increasing revenue, never forget about the clients that you've worked in the past, the dormant client relationship.
Brian, I know that you run some peer advisory boards, but from a membership perspective for Small Business USA members, this is probably one of the biggest gaps. This page is probably one of the biggest gaps, I would think, or that I've seen, where people, their clients don't really understand the scope of their business. They don't understand when they should follow back up. They don't there's so many pieces of, gee, like I hear often, geez, I wonder why that client never called me back, or why did they hire this person for this when I can do that for them? So I love this slide for that reason, because we see many consultants, like we leverage different strategies, many different strategies to do this, but I think this is a really important piece that a lot of consultants actually miss out on.
Yeah, so one of the ways that one of the things that we're gonna talk about as we go forward is maybe some out-of-the-box ways to provide consulting. So, I think most of us grew up on let's go project by project, and we're gonna have to live with the ups and downs of the project cycle. But in some ways, there's other ways that you can serve clients that aren't project by project based. So there's other ways that you can keep past clients who may not need you on we'll say on a part-time basis, but who may need you for an hour or two a month, and you can preserve that relationship over time, and effectively that will lead you to additional project type work. So past clients are a great source for potential new business. Current clients are an outstanding source for new business. If you work the consulting project and really get to understand the business, you're going to know what their current needs are and whether you're able to service those needs or not. If you're not able to service those needs, obviously there's not going to be additional work. But most likely what's going to happen is that as you work on the project, you're going to see other areas that you can help with. And that client is more likely to hire you to do that additional work because they already know, like, and trust you, and they've seen the results of your work on a current basis. So the advantage of working with your current clients to identify new work is they're currently experiencing the value that you've provided. So the next slide, Colleen. The next point is really important. Niche targets a great prospect. I think one of the things that small business owners suffer from, consultants suffer from, even larger businesses suffer from, but we really see it more in the small business and the consulting world, is not everybody is your prospect. So you've got to have a niche target market. And the reason you have to have a niche target market is because your targets have to be easily identifiable. You already know their problems and issues, and because of that, you can craft a compelling marketing message. If you're trying to be all things to all people, you're probably going to be nothing to no one, because no one will be able to understand who your prospective clients are, what value you bring, and be able to help communicate your message. So if you haven't done it already, you really have to develop a niche market. And if you don't take anything else from this presentation, you really want to think about how to develop a niche market, and we have some tools that can help you do that. Another great source of client relationships and client revenue is referrals from current and past clients. Now, I've worked in a lot of different firms that tend to be professional service firms, and a lot of the professional service providers are skittish about asking their clients for referrals. I like to build it into my process. If the person is presumably already happy with what I'm doing for them, they're going to want to share that with other people that they know. I've had many situations where we had the situation where Colleen brought up, and you have a client go with another professional service provider, and when asked why they did that, they responded, well, I didn't know you were taking on more clients. So there's a clear gap in communication there because they didn't think to come to you because they didn't think you had a need for new clients. Well, part of that is you never told them that you had a need for new clients. Well, the next slide, Colleen. Referrals from networking partners. And we're going to, at the end of this presentation, we're going to talk more about how to be really strategic with your networking. But referrals from networking partners are great because in most cases they're really hot. This person is vouching for your skill. They're vouching for the fact that you can bring benefit to the engagement. So you really want to work closely with your networking partners and get them to understand the value proposition that you have and what you're bringing to the table. Referrals from family and friends, that's another area that can be really good because they can vouch for your personal integrity, honesty, and your passion for your work. They probably can't vouch for your skill, but you can effectively do that on your own. So when you're thinking about how do I generate new revenue, make sure that you're in touch with your family and friends. Make sure that everybody knows what you're doing. And to my point earlier, make sure that they know the characteristics of the client that you're looking for. You know, how big are they? How much revenue do they have? How many employees do they have? But more importantly, how does your client think? You know, my clients tend to be what I call intellectually humble. They realize that they don't know everything, and at the same time, they're open to new ideas and they want to grow the value of their business. So I have some qualitative factors that I'm able to share with my networking partners, such as if you're talking to someone and they say, I'm frustrated with the growth of my business, well, that's a great opportunity for me. If you get a business owner who says, I'm really having difficulty with my employees, that's a great initial referral to me. Now, I may bring in an HR consultant to work with me on that project, but I'm a good person to at least come to as the initial resource. So one of the things that you want to do over time is to share those 14 value points that we talked about earlier with your networking partners, with your family and friends, so that they can understand the types of issues that you're looking for when you're out on an engagement. The next slide. So one of the big takeaways that we have here is we want to make sure that our referral sources and our marketing strategy are in place. So we'll talk about this more later, but you would never, well, I shouldn't say you would never, because a lot of people don't, unfortunately, go into business with a marketing plan or do not develop a marketing plan. They kind of have a hit or miss plan. But in a perfect world, you're going to have a marketing plan. You're also going to have a networking strategy to guide your networking efforts. So you want to make sure those two things are in sync, or else you're going to be running in different directions. So here's the big piece of why we're here today. I'm assuming that you're a consultant who currently works on a project-by-project basis. If you're not, and you do additional things that we're going to talk about today, I commend you for that. I would say to those consultants, let's work through maybe some different options that you may not be working with right now. Because one of the things we want to have is we want to have different options available for different sets of clients. So different sets of clients are going to need different things. They're going to need different levels of consulting and coaching. So what we're going to talk about is some different ways to bring additional value to them and create additional revenue for the consultant beyond the project-by-project engagement. So we're going to focus on how to create additional revenue for your business. In each of the modules, we'll talk about how you create the additional revenue, the benefits for the clients, and the benefits for the consultants. As I was saying before, you may incorporate some or all of these into your practice, and if you're able to do so successfully, you really have the ability to supercharge your revenue and create an annuity base that will provide you with sustained earning power and a margin of safety. Those are two huge things in business: sustained earning power. You want to go to the bank and you want to get a loan from the bank. The bank is thrilled that they had a good year last year, but they're probably going to be more thrilled if you've had a good year the past 5 years. It basically shows that you have sustained earning power. Annuity base is huge. If you ever look at what I think one of the best businesses around from a business perspective is the insurance business. It's all, once you make the initial sale, it's all annuity revenue from there. I mean, of course, you have to service your clients. You have to help them work through their claims. But if you're doing that correctly, you've created a very predictable stream of revenue for yourself, which provides you and your family with a margin of safety during the tough times when you're not generating enough projects.
Sorry, Brian, I
So
got a little ahead of you on these slides.
That's okay. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is group training. Group training can be a great way to bring valuable consulting to your client base at a reduced cost. One of the things you have to worry about with group training, though, is you don't want to turn group training into a separate marketing activity that's going to take up a lot of your time. So one of the things that I recommend, if you're going to do group training, let's look at those past clients that you had, and let's make a phone call or send them a handwritten note in addition to your normal marketing. Because why do I suggest that? Because at the end of the day, they're not getting a lot of phone calls. They're not getting a lot of handwritten notes. They're getting a lot of email. They're getting a lot of newsletters. So one of the ways that your training can stand out is by just making some simple phone calls or writing some handwritten notes. Go to the next slide, Colleen. All right, so let's take a step back and let's say what is group training. So group training is effectively you're bringing together a roster of past clients and current clients to talk about an area that's going to impact the value of their business. Again, when you're designing these things, looking at these group training sessions, let's think about how you can further the 14 value deliverables that we talked about earlier. So, whenever I design a training, I want to focus on one of those things. And, if you're an HR consultant, one of the things you could do a training on is employee morale, how to increase employee morale. That would be an extremely valuable training exercise for pretty much any client that you could work with, and you could do it in a cost-effective manner. So what are some of the benefits of the group training? Well, let's get them out. Let's get the clients out of the office and basically strategically thinking about one specific aspect of their business. We talked about the fact that it's cost-effective education surrounding issues that are crucial to them. My apologies. Every once in a while my computer shuts down, so I have to restart it up again. Okay, so I'm back. The group training also gives the peer-to-peer, the group members the ability to network with each other and talk to a group of their peers who are facing similar challenges. The training itself gives them an opportunity to build a stronger relationship and a most trusted business advisor relationship with the consultant who has learned how to use different methods to continuously bring them value. Of the next slide, Colleen. One of the great benefits of group training is you get to cement yourself as the expert in matters that are critical to the success of the business. So if you're able to bring a group of clients together and talk to them about employee morale and employee engagement, and you're able to give them 2 or 3 nuggets that can help them increase the productivity of their business, you're going to become viewed as the expert. That's going to lead to additional opportunities down the road via referrals, via writing, via speaking. I mean, once you become the expert, there's so many more vehicles available to market yourself. So one of the things we talk about all the time with Small Business USA and our consultants is we want to move you along the spectrum. We don't want you to be a vendor. We want you to be their most trusted business advisor. So the only way to become their most trusted business advisor is to find different ways to interact with them on a continuous basis. If you're doing a project for somebody and then you don't talk to them for 3 years, you're never going to become their most trusted business advisor. So part of today's seminar is getting you to think about how you can bring continuous, cost-effective value to your clients. To the extent that you do things like group training and some of the things that we're going to talk about later on down the line, you have a stronger likelihood of retaining those clients as current clients. They will find that the pain of not working with you is too great to not work with you. You're bringing them so much value that they can't afford to not have that value in their business. So it really cements you as it really cements the relationship. I think is the best way to describe it. You're also going to be able to, through group training, develop more new clients because you're going to have an affordable mechanism for someone to get some initial training about some areas that they don't know enough about. They may know that they don't know enough about them. They may also know that they can't afford to bring in a full-time consultant. So what they may need to do is work through group training and some of the other things that we're going to talk about so that they have access to the information that they need. So the next slide, Colleen. So as a consultant, there has to be mutual benefit if we're going to employ any particular strategy. So we want to think about what's the benefit from the consulting perspective. So one of the things, you get an opportunity to provide outstanding cost-effective value rather than trying to squeeze project work out of every client. You're going to find that your marketing efforts are extremely frustrating if you're trying to sell project work to a client that can't afford project work. So as you go through the qualification process with a new client, one of the things that you want to understand is what they can afford and what they can't afford, and have an honest discussion about it. It may be that they can't afford to hire you for a $10,000 project, but it may mean that that the most effective tool for that particular client is to participate in a $200 training that takes you an hour to do, and you can do it with 10 other people, so that you can effectively, you can get paid for your work and for the value that you're providing, but at the same time you can spread that cost among 9 or 10 others. So that's a great thing about group training. Obviously, you're going to get additional revenue for your business if you're able to put group training in successfully. One of the things I like to do in my group training is invite my referral partners free of charge so that they can learn more about what I'm doing. A great referral partner needs to know what you're doing and what value you're bringing to the business in order to help you. So I like to invite them along. You also have the potential for great referrals from people who have attended your program. So that may be to attend one of your additional programs. That may be to sign on for a project on a project-by-project type basis. So referrals are another great benefit of group training. The next slide, Colleen. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is, so we've talked about group training, we've talked about the benefits of that. Group training is an outstanding cost-effective way to help bring consulting to a client, but it may not be enough. You may find that when you have, and you probably will find when you have clients who come to your group training, it's going to help them identify other issues that they have and other issues that they need help with. Now, one of the gaps that we talked about early on in this is this difference between the expectations of the client and the consultant. I think a lot of consultants fall down on the job because they think the job is done once they give the advice, and they don't price into their work the fact that they're going to have some sort of a level of assistance executing and working with the client to execute and implement the strategies. So if you're just giving advice and you have no role in execution and implementation, we may find with a small business owner that that's not going to be successful. Now, you may be able to do that with your larger clients because they have more resources to bring to bear upon a particular solution that you provide. But with small business, you got to be real careful and make sure that you build some time into implementation and execution. So monthly coaching and consulting meetings can be a great way to do that. the client benefits in a number of ways. They get real-time discussion of the issues that are currently facing the client. So when you have a monthly coaching session, you may think, okay, well, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about this today. But you may find out that they have another burning issue that they need to talk about and they need to get resolved. So you have real-time discussion of those issues. You're becoming more of that trusted business advisor because you're building a relationship with them month by month, and you can understand all aspects of their business, which is critical to good consulting. You can use the coaching sessions to effectively build business planning into the business. So one of the things that a lot of small business owners do not have is a real good strategic business plan. And statistics will show that a business owner that has a strategic business plan is far more likely to succeed than one who doesn't. So you can effectively building a business plan into your coaching sessions. The next slide, Colleen. This is the monthly coaching and consulting meetings. We'll take the next slide. You're going to be able to build the next slide, Colleen. Thank you. We're going to be able to build stronger relationship. Okay, we're getting to the client benefits. So we're going to build. You're going to be able to, you're going to be able to build a stronger relationship with the trusted coach, consultant, or mentor. So, part of, as a client, one of the things you want to do is you want to have really good relationships with your advisors. And the only way that you're going to have really good relationships with your advisors is to work with them, to see how they think, to get to know what value they're bringing to your business, to really understand what value they're bringing to your business.
Brian, what is the difference? I'm sorry, what is the difference? Because we've switched from the monthly training to monthly coaching and consulting meetings. What does that look like?
Okay, yes, I should have said. So monthly coaching looks like, okay, you get together once a month with your coach or consultant to work on a longer. So let's say employee engagement is a problem, and we've gone through group training and we've identified employee engagement as a problem. Well, one of the things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put some strategies in place to reverse the negative trend in employee engagement. So part of the way and most likely the small business owner is going to need the coach or consultant's help in executing that plan. So one of the ways to effectively provide that implementation and execution assistance is to offer monthly coaching where you say, okay, let's take, for example, something that we do in our peer advisory boards. You say, all right, from an employee engagement perspective, I'm going to work on these 3 things this month, these 3 initiatives. And I'm going to come back and talk to the coach or consultant about what I've done with those specific initiatives. So it's one-on-one intensive coaching around reaching some objective that both the coach and the client have agreed upon is necessary to move the business forward.
So Brian, if I did a project for a client, when that project was wrapped up, I would then talk to them about creating a monthly coaching consultation meeting and have this standing meeting, the 3rd Thursday of every month or whatever. Is that what you're talking about? So it would be one-on-one monthly to get that annuity?
Yeah, it would be one-on-one, and I think your example assumes obviously that they need continuing assistance. So what you've done is you've brought a project to completion, but during the completion of that project, you may have identified other issues that they need work on that they may not need an intensive project on, but maybe they can use monthly coaching. So they need something more than group training, something less than a full-scale project, and I think monthly coaching fits in very nicely there. Does that answer your question, Colleen?
It does, thanks.
Okay. Well, one of the things we love about our peer advisory boards is this element of accountability. So in this case, we're talking about one-on-one accountability with the coach or consultant who is going to come back to you and say, okay, you You said you were going to do these 3 things to effectively improve employee engagement over the next month. Did you do these 3 things? What were the results? What were the obstacles? How can we make sure that we're able to implement that going forward? And what are the 3 new things that you're going to do for the next month, assuming that you were able to knock off the first 3 in the first month? So there's an element of accountability that is definitely missing from, it can be missing from, believe it or not, from project-based business, and definitely is missing from group training. And then again, one of the common benefits of all these consulting, coaching methodologies is, it's going to force the client to spend some time out of the office and thinking about their business strategically. That can only benefit them. And I know for all of us who work with small business owners, it's like pulling teeth to get them out of their office and focused on their business instead of working in their business. But it's something that has to be done if you want to build a sustainable business model that's saleable when you decide you want to retire. Well, the next slide. So again, you get to cement yourself, these are sort of duplicates of the group training, but you get to cement yourself as an expert in the matters that are critical to business success. You're going to move further along that spectrum from vendor to business advisor. And again, it's going to be more likely that these monthly interactions are going to lead you to greater client retention, because it's going to be so much harder to replace you. You're going to have so much institutional knowledge about the business. You're going to have helped them work through their most difficult issues. You'll have been there as they're growing their business, so it's going to be much more difficult to replace you. So what are the consulting benefits of monthly coaching? Well, the first thing is you're going to get more clients if you offer this, because you're offering a service that most people are not offering in the marketplace. Now, your business coaches will already offer this, and we do work with a lot of business coaches who already offer this. But it would be, I like to see my HR consultants offer this. It's a great way to differentiate yourself from the rest of the consultants who are out there. So you want to think about how you can incorporate monthly coaching into your business, and using the example of an HR consultant. Maybe it's a client that you have identified where employee engagement is an ongoing issue, and you work on that particular issue for a year using monthly coaching and consulting meetings instead of coming in and just doing a project. One of the great benefits, obviously, to doing monthly coaching and consulting is it's an additional source of monthly recurring revenue. So that's, again, going to help you build a more sustainable business model and a margin of safety during the lean project times. And the repeated interactions, one of the things I find when I work with clients on a monthly basis, I end up with more projects. And one of the reasons that happens is because inevitably you're talking to them about the additional issues that weren't within the original scope of what you were trying to do. And that typically will lead to additional project-type work. As a consultant, I think the one thing that you want to do to make sure that you're continuing to bring value to additional incremental value to your clients is make sure that, when you're hearing about a new issue, you think about how you can work with them on that issue to help them work through and become market dominating in one of the 14 deliverables that we talked about earlier. So not every project is a good project for a small business owner, because it's going to take their time and resources. So you really have to make sure that it's a high value added project. The next slide, Colleen. All right, so the next, if everybody's good with monthly coaching and consulting, the next is the quarterly review. And what's a quarterly review? So we talked about monthly coaching, where you meet every month and you set some action items, you set some goals and objectives, you set some action items, you come back at the end of each month and you evaluate them and set new action items, new goals and objectives for the next month. Well, a quarterly review operates in the same way, but what it does a couple things. First of all, it may be a more affordable model for a client, so a client may not be able to hire you to meet with them on a monthly basis. They may not have the time to meet with you on a monthly basis. But if you're operating in one of the crucial spheres of their business, you should be able to get a meeting with them on a quarterly basis to set some goals and objectives, some action items, and to review what's happened in the prior quarter. So quarterly reviews can be great for that. Quarterly reviews can be great even beyond just, even if you're doing monthly coaching, because monthly coaching tends to be, here's the issue I'm having right now. We need to focus on this issue. We need to get this issue resolved. So it tends to be very micro-focused, whereas a quarterly review allows the consultant and the business owner to take a step back and look at the macro issues. What are the big issues that are affecting the business? How have we been able to work through those bigger issues? So quarterly reviews can either be a replacement for a monthly coaching if a client can't afford monthly coaching, or it can be in addition to monthly coaching if the client wants to get a more macro view of their operations. So the benefits, I won't go into them in great deal because they tend to repeat themselves. So obviously you're building stronger relationships. You're starting to provide assistance that goes way beyond mere advice. You're looking at issues of evaluating, implementing, and executing chosen strategies. So really what you're becoming is a strategic business advisor, and you're helping them implement these strategies to help ensure success. We talked about that they've built in a macro element of accountability. We're focusing on longer-term data instead of hot-button issues, so we're able to see the trends in the business. A good example of this, I like to give concrete examples. So I work in the financial world, so one of the things we do is we do financial analysis at the end of each quarter. And that financial analysis allows me to look at what the trends are in the business compared to the prior year and compared to prior quarters to start to see trends and to identify areas where we need to do some additional work. The next slide, Colleen. Again, we get the benefit of getting the client out of the office and thinking about their business. One of the things I like about quarterly reviews is that it gives you the ability to build longer-term business planning into the engagement. So your monthly coaching tends to be, I have this problem. We're going to do these 3 things. We're going to evaluate these 3 things. It's very issue-focused, whereas quarterly review-type planning is very macro-focused. So what we're doing is we can help build out a longer-term business plan for the entire enterprise instead of being focused on an issue-by-issue basis. And then also, obviously, the last piece is the trusted business advisor piece. So we'll move on to the next slide, Colleen. Consulting benefits, very similar. And when I say that, I'm not trying to minimize the importance of any of these things. They're all extremely important in a consulting practice. But, a lot of the benefits tend to be the same, and you have to see which particular avenue works best for which group of clients. So you want to have all these things in your toolbox and realize that some are going to work for some clients more than they're going to work for others. I mean, if you do quarterly reviews with clients, you're going to retain clients. You're going to have repeated interactions with them on a quarterly basis that are absolutely going to lead you to additional project work. Next slide, Colleen. You're going to end up with more new clients. Your clients are going to get to know you extremely well. They're going to understand the value that you offer. You're going to understand who a good client is for you. Someone who looks a lot like them, most likely. They're going to, you will, if you start implementing some of these different strategies, you're going to end up with more new clients. And of course, you're going to create a quarterly recurring revenue stream. So you're going to be able to, once you have this in place, count on this revenue each quarter, and it can transform your practice. It will transform your practice, because when you go from a project-by-project type business to a recurring revenue business, it changes your entire mindset about being a consultant.
You know, we have everybody unmuted, so please feel free to interrupt at any time and ask questions. But one thing that is really interesting, like I think the monthly and the quarterly reviews are really important, but I also think it's important to note that they should, and Brian, I think you did this as you described it very well, but they should be focused on different things. Monthly is about accountability, whereas quarterly is measuring your first quarter results, and it takes a bigger, more fiscal role in that quarterly review piece. How else would you differentiate monthly and quarterly with what you would cover and how you would sell those benefits to a business owner?
Well, monthly, when I do a monthly coaching with a client, I don't always know what issue they're having right now. What's the big thing on their plate that they're trying to deal with until they come in and we have a discussion about it. So it tends to be real issue focused, where quarterly reviews tend to be more planning focused. So, you could say that a monthly review is like the firefighting of consulting, because you're putting out whatever fire is going on, and you are building in a planning, an accountability element to it as well to structure the relationship. But it's more of that, here's the issue I'm having now, how do I get through this issue? Than with quarterly reviews, you're effectively, how am I going to reach my goals at year end? The only way I'm going to reach my goals at year end is if I reach my goals at each quarter. So I'm evaluating where I am with respect to my longer-term goals at each quarter.
My favorite topic, Brian.
I know. This is my favorite topic, too. And I think everybody knows why it's our favorite topic. Colleen's built an entire business around peer advisory boards. I have, helped her do that, and I helped lead one of her peer advisory boards. They are so powerful. We're just going to touch on, I can't even, in a short presentation like this, I could do 2 hours on the benefits of peer advisory boards, but in the interest of time, we're obviously going to keep it to far less than that. But I am a huge believer in peer advisory boards. I think they are a huge difference maker for small business owners. The small business owners that I have worked with through this format have achieved success that they probably didn't even think was possible before they entered the peer advisory board. So it's a very powerful tool. Being a facilitator of a peer advisory board is an extremely powerful, but an extremely, I guess the best way to say it is a delicate position, because you're dealing with some of these clients' most difficult issues, and you're working together with the other peers to provide them with collaborative advice. So, let's move on to sort of some of the subject matter here. So again, this isn't going to be all the benefits of the peer advisory boards, but I wanted to highlight some that I thought were really important to talk about. A peer advisory board, we all know that small business owners feel alone. It's very easy to feel alone. You have so much responsibility. You have so many decisions you have to make. You have employees you have to manage. You have vendors that you have to manage. You have customers that you have to manage. And a lot of times, in a small business, you're not able to successfully delegate all of that. So you get this feeling that you're alone and you don't have the resources that you need to be able to do it, to move things forward. A peer advisory board is great for that, because if you're having an issue with a customer and you don't feel like you fully have the answer on your own to how you're going to deal with the situation, You come and you bring it before the board and you talk about it with a group of your peers, and they help you work through it, and your facilitator helps you work through it, and you go back with an action plan that allows you to take that particular issue off the table for the next month. So tremendous amount of support for the business owner that feels alone.
You know
the
what?
Board
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Brian.
That's okay. Go ahead.
No, I find what's really interesting, I mean, we did a lot of research before we created it. We have a very set model that we use that takes the best of all the different peer advisory boards that are out there and really brings it to us, but it also combines a marketing program. So we have a very branded type of peer advisory board that is all in one. But one thing that always has struck me, now I have the opportunity to go to all of our peer advisory boards, especially in the beginning, to protect our brand and all of that. But one thing that is really interesting that I found is a lot of business. I equate it to either with your parents or when you get, if you were in corporate America, you get direction from the top down about something, and as a business owner or as a child or an employee, you say, oh, they don't really know what I'm going through. Or that, there's that dialogue that a business owner will have in their head. Oh yeah, he's a smart consultant, but he's just not living this day to day and he doesn't get it. Or there's that piece that is just blown apart and shredded when you're in a peer advisory board, because everyone sitting at your table plus your trusted advisor gets it, and there's no excuse why you can't implement it, and they're sharing from experiences. And I could not count the number of people who have taken risks that they wouldn't have taken because of that peer advisory board, or have gained confidence around doing something that they normally wouldn't have because of that peer support. It really is a very different beast.
And part of it goes to the next point. I mean, it's really collaborative problem solving at its finest. So, when you go to a consultant, you're getting one perspective on what they think you should do. You may go to your consultant, your business attorney, your accountant, your financial planner. You may get 4 different types of advice because each of those people has a different mindset towards business and risk. One of the things that the peer advisory board allows you to do is it helps you reconcile those competing opinions. You come before a group of your peers, you lay out the issue and the potential ways that you're going to solve that issue, and you get a group weighing in on what they think you should do. So it's very collaborative in nature. You're getting more opinions, but you're getting more opinions from people who are very similarly situated to you. So the board, one of the great things about the board is that it really starts the business planning process because there's an element of planning to it. The members are required to set goals, action items, and execute strategies in between meetings. If they're having difficulty in between meetings executing a strategy, they can always call one of their peers and discuss it. They can always call their facilitator and talk to their facilitator about it. So, again, even between meetings, there's no need to feel alone because you can always reach out and talk to somebody in your group. I think one of the great things that we've done with the group is we've gone to these private LinkedIn groups, which allow us to have conversations online in between meetings to help our business owners get through whatever issues they're having. The next slide, Colleen. Accountability is huge. As a small business owner, you're the boss. The buck stops with you. You're in charge, and a lot of us, we've all started small businesses because we want to be the person in charge. We want to have that responsibility. But one of the problems with being self-employed is unless you're extremely self-motivated, you can lose some accountability from time to time. I mean, you don't have to be accountable to your employees. In some ways, you do have to absolutely be accountable to your customers and to your vendors. But from a business perspective, there's no one who's forcing you to deal with the employee engagement issue. You know that you have the issue. There's no one who's forcing you to do it. But when you come before a peer advisory board and you tell people that, you're telling your peers and your facilitator that your business is not growing because you have an employee engagement problem, they're going to task you with doing some things to change that. And they're going to force you to come back to the table and report upon what you've done the next month. So there's a real element of accountability. I mean, you never want to be the person who's sitting in a peer advisory board who hasn't done their homework. And then, the business growth that we've seen from these peer advisory boards is just incredible. I think part of it is you're getting you're taking the business owner out of fire drill mode and putting them in planning and execution mode. They're becoming far more strategic. They're forced at a minimum to think about their business probably 5 to 6 hours a month because they have to prepare for the meetings and then attend the meetings, which are the meetings are only a couple hours. But they're doing things in between those meetings so that they can come back and talk about what they've done. So it's forcing them at a minimum to think about their business for 5 to 6 hours a month, and that can do nothing but help. Peer advisory boards also provide you with a great opportunity to network with your peers. As a small business owner, you probably don't get out of the office very much. You're probably not networking as much as you should. So it gives you a great opportunity to do that as well. On the next slide, Colleen. So we've seen from a client perspective what are the benefits of a peer advisory board, and I could go on all day, but I won't. So let's focus on what are some of the consulting benefits. One of the things that I find very interesting about peer advisory boards is it's not always easy when you're providing an intangible service such as consulting to show the value of what you're doing. It's not. I used to tell people, I'm not being paid to lift boxes onto a truck, so someone can't necessarily see what I'm doing. They can't see my thought process. But the peer advisory board allows them to see your thought process, to see how you resolve issues. So it can be a tremendous, tremendous opportunity to demonstrate the value that you bring. Whenever I work with consultants, we're always about building that most trusted business advisor status. I mean, if you want to be a truly successful consultant, you've got to be the first person that your business owners call. And they're always going to call if you act as a resource for them. So you may not be the person who can solve their problem, and I certainly don't solve all of the problems for the people who are on my peer advisory board, but one thing I always do is point them in the right direction to someone who can help them. From a consulting standpoint, facilitating peer advisory boards are probably one of the most unique marketing opportunities that you can have. Large companies, small companies, think of all the money that's spent on trying to figure out what a client's potential problems are and how we can solve those problems. When you sit in a peer advisory board as a facilitator, you have your clients telling you what their problems are, what they need you to work with them on, what types of projects they need you to do, what type of resources they need you to bring to the table. So on a monthly basis, they are telling you exactly what they need, when they need it, and how they need it delivered. It really is pure marketing gold to work as a facilitator on a peer advisory board for your clients. The next slide.
Without a spelling error. Sorry, I missed that.
What's that?
The other one was there was a spelling error in consultant. I apologize, I missed it.
Okay, no problem. Those happen. Okay, so consultant benefits. So we're continuing on with consulting benefits. One of the problems that we talked about early on that consultants run into is that they don't necessarily provide execution help. So they'll provide advice, but they won't provide implementation and execution help, or they won't price it into their model, so they're not comfortable doing it. the nature of a peer advisory board is you're going to be helping your clients set goals, action items, objectives. They're going to come back and report on their progress and obstacles. That's going to allow you to figure out whether they're having execution problems or not. So if you're helping them to develop a really good plan, and for some reason they're not able to execute that plan, you're going to know that the problem is execution, and you're going to be able to help them with execution instead of trying to revise the plan. Because in the case I described, it's not the plan that's not working; it's the execution that's not working, and you want to know that. And the peer advisory board allows you to understand that. So back to the resource thing, you and the board may not be able to solve all of the problems presented by the client, but you can gain a tremendous amount of clout in the community if you're referring your clients to people who can really help them. So you're building up credibility with your own clients, you're building up credibility with your referral partners, and I'm a big believer that all comes back to you. I think over time I'm finding with the peer advisory boards, I'm becoming known as a super connector because I'm sitting in there with these clients, figuring out what their problems and issues are and who can help them with those issues. So I'm creating a lot of social capital. I'm a big believer in the fact that if you create social capital, it's going to come back to you. So I think that is one of the huge untapped resources of these peer advisory boards is the ability to listen intently and to identify a problem and identify someone who can help them solve that problem.
I think what's really interesting about this group, like when you sign the NDA, something really magical happens. But I have seen there, you look at it, somebody said, one of our members had said, oh, peer advisory boards are like BNI on crack, and it was never anything that we set out to do. But there is something about being on a board and being so invested in each other's business that the benefits for the consultant who's leading the peer advisory boards are unbelievable. And the referrals are really that group. I mean, they actually help generate sales within each other. There's such a commitment to help each other build sales. It's incredible. And then that trusted advisor really becomes the first person they go to for any consulting need, because they're deemed as that expert. So it's one thing that we really didn't expect when we started out, but it's become one of the best and biggest benefits, I think.
Yeah, and it really has. I think every day we're finding a new benefit to these peer advisory boards. There's things that we knew that were absolutely going to happen, but I think we're constantly being surprised by how powerful these are. This slide here is Bob Adley, the owner of Aquabuilt, who basically is saying that his peer advisory board gave him the support that he needed to grow his business. So Bob is on the verge of being extremely successful, and a big piece of that is the fact that he's been a participant in the small advisory board and has gotten timely advice as to how to grow his business. All right, on the next slide. So we've spent the last hour talking about how to create additional revenue beyond fee-for-service engagement. So we'll go on to the next slide, which is basically reviewing what we've talked about. We talked about group training as a potential vehicle for increasing revenue and at the same time bringing cost-effective value to clients. We've talked about monthly reviews and coaching, which are a great tool for building in an element of accountability and effectively allowing you to focus on an issue-by-issue basis on consulting, implementation, and execution. We talked about quarterly reviews, which are more macro in nature and really focus on the business planning and the trends and where the trends are falling out in relation to the business planning. And we've talked about peer advisory boards, which really combine all of the benefits of group training, monthly reviews, and quarterly reviews, and give you really the benefit of perspective from people who are similarly situated to you, as well as a professional facilitator. So that's what we've talked about. I hope that out of this piece of it, you've really taken something that you can bring into your practice. Obviously, if you have additional questions for Colleen or I as to how you might go about implementing some of these things, please feel free to reach out. We'll give you contact information at the end of the call. But make sure, one of the things that you want to think about is you want to make sure that your personal revenue, this is what you live on, this is what your family lives on, this is what you're going to retire on, this is the legacy that you might leave for your children. It cannot be limited to just singular client interactions and then that's it. You have to find ways to build annuity revenue so you can build a business that's sustainable and provides you with a margin of safety. I'm sure you can see that we're very passionate about seeing consultants be successful business owners as well. And I hope that comes out in our training today. We'll on to the last part. Power networking. So let's drive our business faster. How do we get to know these people, let them know what we're doing, so that we can supercharge our business? So one of the things that I always say to people when they talk to me about networking is networking is really just another form of marketing. So you have to have a plan, just like you have to have a marketing plan. You should have a plan, and that plan should be targeted. Your marketing plan should contain a clear definition of your ideal customer or client, and your ideal networking partner should be clearly defined. In essence, what you want to do is you want to talk to people, have referral partners that have similar clients to you. So you want to work with people who are talking to the same people that you want to talk to. So, one of the ways to really do that is through targeted networking. If you're going out to a chamber of commerce and your ideal networking partner is not someone who serves the B2C sector, that may not be a great way for you to meet people who are going to help you grow your business. You may be better off taking an approach using LinkedIn online to connect with your ideal networking partners. So part of what we do with our consultants is really help them develop power networking plans, and the first aspect of that is that their networking is targeted. The next slide, Colleen. The 80-20 rule. Basically, the 80-20 rule is a rule that says you'll receive 80% of your referrals from 20% of your networking partners. So what you want to do is you want to be real strategic with your networking. I think at most you can only balance 10 to 12 really intensive strategic partnerships. So you've got to make sure that these 10 to 12 people understand your business inside and out, you understand their business inside and out, you understand each person's target market, which hopefully is exactly the same, so that you're able over time to share customers and share prospects. Once you identify this key group, you should establish a short business plan and strategy that will yield additional business opportunities for each of you. One of the things that I'll make available to anyone on the call today is I have a 16-point value proposition. What are 16 ways that you can bring value to your strategic partners without giving them a referral? So there's a lot of ways, even if you don't have a referral, to create long-term value for your strategic partners, and I'm happy to share that with anyone who'd like to see a copy of it. Next slide, Colleen. Triggered. Networking has to be triggered rather than general. If I went to a networking event tomorrow and I said, I'm an accountant with Whittlesey & Hadley, the person in front of me would immediately think, I already have an accountant. I already know plenty of accountants. I don't need to know another accountant. What I've done is I've told them I've given them the label that is put on my business. I haven't told them anything about the benefits that my customers receive from working with me, because those benefits are going to be far different than working with someone in a different accounting firm. They don't adequately address the psychological characteristics of what my ideal client is. They don't talk about the factual circumstances that give rise to a need for my services. The problem that creates is my networking partners have to take what I do, which they're not real familiar with because it's not what they do, and try to match it up with their clients. But they don't understand necessarily what benefits I'm bringing to their clients, so they have a hard time referring me. I've got to be real good at telling my strategic partners what benefits I provide, but also what facts and circumstances are going to lead someone to need me. So if I'm an HR consultant, to kind of to make this a little more concrete, if I'm a financial planner, my client says, I'm just having a ton of problems with my employees. We're not getting something done. Well, I want my financial planner to know that those are key words that as soon as he hears them, he should think of me. And I want to know what his key words and phrases are. What are the sentences that are going to tell me that there's a need for his services? So you want to make sure that going back and forth, you really have a good concept of what triggers a referral, and that you're real clear about what types of speech and communication will trigger that. So to review step 4, be real strategic with your networking. You want to create more time and money for the things you want to do versus the things you have to do. So, I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. We'll certainly take any questions.
Everyone's off. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say this slide's important. Obviously, this is our contact information. Go ahead, Colleen.
No, I just want to remind everyone is off mute, so please feel free to just jump in, and whatever questions are out there, we'd love to hear them. All right. Well, that's.
All right, well,
go ahead.
Yeah, if we don't have any questions, one thing I want to encourage everybody to do, there was actually one question that popped up about whether they can get copies of the slides. I just saw that pop up across the
yes, I actually recorded the webinar as well, so we can get copies of the slides to everyone, as well as if you could send me an email, because your email does not come up, unfortunately, on your on this particular program. I just want to make sure that I have your email address to send you those slides. So you can email me at info@smallbusinessus.com just to verify that I get the slide to you.
Yeah, I hope that people walk away from the training today, and effectively they don't walk away from it. They get a copy of the slides. They sit down and think about how they can build these various tools in their practice. And if you think that peer advisory boards are something that you want to do, I really encourage you to reach out to Colleen and I to help you get that started. All right.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that comment. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your day, and I'll be happy to get these slides to everyone who needs them. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.